Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're skipping the usual high-level theories and jumping straight into the deep end. What we're looking at is a high-contrast analytics terminal packed with 4 years of hard, empirical household energy data. We aren't dealing with estimates or fancy marketing brochures here. No, this is a real residential solar installation acting as a strict economic laboratory. It's a completely data-driven discovery arc that is going to fundamentally change how you view green investments. So it brings us to the million-dollar question, right? Does solar energy actually pay off, or is it just some expensive eco-trend? We constantly hear these oversimplified assumptions, but our data totally flips that narrative on its head. The truth is, financial returns from renewable systems are never determined by the technology alone. The exact same solar panels could make you a fantastic return or leave you entirely in the red. It depends entirely on a complex matrix of public policy, electricity tariffs, and crucially, your own daily habits. You just can't evaluate an investment like this in total isolation. Now, to really make sense of the numbers, we've got to set the ground rules. This specific case study operates under a Polish net metering framework known as the system Opustów. Basically, think of the national power grid as one giant virtual battery. For every single kilowatt hour of green electricity you feed into it, you're allowed to pull 0.8 back out for free. The grid keeps that remaining 20% as a handling fee, kind of like a bank tax. But here's the real kicker. It operates on a strict 12-month expiration deadline. If you don't use it, the utility company keeps it, and you get absolutely zero compensation. Just take a look at the sheer reality of these numbers. This is our empirical evidence spanning from 2022 all the way to 2025. Back in 2022, the system was cruising along with a comfortable surplus of over 500 kilowatt hours. But then, boom, a massive consumption shock hit in 2023. We saw a 68% spike in electricity demand because of partial electrification, and they suddenly ran a deficit. But as retail energy prices started climbing, every single kilowatt hour generated on that roof became this incredible, valuable shield against inflation. Fast forward to 2024, and the system fully recovered, peaking at nearly 4,500 kilowatt hours of production and totally stabilizing the household budget once again. Section 1. Visualizing seasonal asymmetry. All right, so we've absolutely got to talk about the elephant in the room, solar intermittency. If you're only looking at annual totals, you're hiding a profound mismatch between when clean energy is produced and when a household actually needs to consume it. The juxtaposition here is just staggering. In May of 2024, the roof pumps out a massive 829 kilowatt hours, way more than the house actually needed, meaning most of it got pushed into the grid, subject to that 20% tax we talked about. But look at December 2023. Solar production plummeted to an absolute low of exactly 1 single kilowatt hour for the entire month. Meanwhile, winter heating drove consumption up to 866 kilowatts, literally 1 single kilowatt hour produced. And this animated radial chart really brings that concept to life. Instead of just a flat timeline, we're mapping the 12 months around a clock face. You can literally see solar production forming this massive, bright yellow crown that violently expands out during the summer months, while the blue wedge of winter consumption just completely dominates the center. This stark visual contrast proves without a shadow of a doubt why local residential generation absolutely cannot exist in a vacuum. It completely relies on that market-regulated grid buffer to survive the winter. Section 2. Behavioral Adaptation Heatmap. Which brings us to a really fascinating insight. We're shifting away from the passive hardware on the roof and looking at actual human habits. Because, the investment doesn't just stop once the panels are bolted down. Notice how this 2D heat map tracks that evolution over 4 years? Those dark red deficit zones you see in the early winter months, they gradually shift and fade into green surplus zones by 2024 and 2025. This right here is behavioral adaptation. It's visual proof that you can reach an operational equilibrium simply by tweaking human habits to match the sun. Okay, so how did they actually pull this off and get into that green zone? It comes down to some really smart, tactical load shifting. Step 1 was identifying the peak solar window, which reliably sits right between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. Step 2, they aggressively shifted their heavy appliance loads, we're talking water heating, induction cooking, directly into that midday window. And step 3, by self-consuming that energy the exact moment it was generated, they completely bypassed that 20% grid retention tax. It's brilliant. Section 3, Sector Coupling Matrix. Now, let's level things up with sector coupling. This is where rooftop solar directly intersects with electric vehicles. And this multidimensional bubble chart takes that idea of load shifting and scales it way up. The horizontal axis is your solar production. The vertical axis is the cost of mobility per 100 kilometers. And the size of the bubble, that's total household consumption. It reveals this incredible paradox. As the bubbles get larger, meaning the household is consuming significantly more electricity to charge a car, they actually drop down into that bright green zone. So higher consumption, perfectly timed with the sun, actually makes overall mobility costs plummet and maximizes direct self-consumption. So where does all this relentless optimization actually lead? Plus 25.6 kilowatt hours. That's it. That tiny little number is the final net accounting balance at the end of 2025. Imagine balancing your entire household budget down to the exact penny over 4 years. That is exactly what they did with their electricity. They consumed roughly 3,400 kilowatt hours in total and reclaimed almost exactly the same amount. This proves that the true microeconomic optimum isn't about generating this massive, overwhelming excess of power. It's about perfectly sizing your system and timing your habits to minimize costly winter imports and eliminate uncompensated waste. Section 4. The Triple Win Conclusion. All right, let's zoom out for a second. We've been looking really closely at a single household optimizing its daily routine, right? But these individual private decisions actually ripple outward into a true triple win ecosystem. Let's break down those interconnected layers. At the micro level, the prosumer effectively wipes out their variable energy costs, securing long-term price resilience against volatile markets and inflation. At the meso level, the local utility company wins because this distributed daytime generation feeds the local network right during peak hours, stabilizing the grid without massive transmission losses. And at the macro level, the state wins. Every single kilowatt hour generated on that roof directly displaces imported fossil fuels. These private household choices are directly driving massive public security benefits. And that brings us to the core takeaway of this entire explainer. The best ecological investment is the one that makes absolute economic sense. It's that simple. True sustainability happens when the market rules are designed so that environmental goals and everyday household economics reinforce each other instead of fighting each other. Rooftop solar isn't just some green energy collector. It is a serious financial tool that transforms market uncertainty into long-term systemic stability. So, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on. Under what conditions does your pro-environmental investment become a resilient economic ecosystem? Take a hard look at your own energy habits. Don't just view them as passive consumption, think of them as a potential system of leverage. The technology itself is really just the starting line. Think about how you can align your daily rhythms to maximize both your financial return and your environmental impact.